It's only a tragedy when a man unalives someone else's kids with his boat and his reckless behavior. But if he had unalived his own child, he would have died doing what he loved. He would have probably been called a hero somehow, and some story fabricated about how he tried to save her life before putting her in danger. But I want to talk about this. This is another dad. This is a dad of three girls, from what I understand, from what I've found. I don't know if they're his children, but in all of his social media, people keep calling him dad, and your girls or whatever. Let's just talk about this, because tis the season of men on boats. Men on boats. I cannot tell you how much I cannot stand men on boats. As a former raft guide and also canoe guide, I spent a lot of time on this river, the Colorado River, and drunk men on boats were my number one nemesis. I constantly feared for the life of the children and teenagers that I was taking down the river because of that. Not nature, although that's some risk. Not the mosquitoes, although those were annoying. It was so hot and you had to be covered head to toe because of the mosquitoes. Not even all the animals, the raccoons, rattlesnakes, scorpions. Like, we literally created forts to protect our food from mostly raccoons, because those little fuckers have like fingers and they're brilliant. I respect them, but I hate them. This is me. This is one of many. I have been down this river so many times. And during this part, it's fine. But the closer you get to the dam where all the speedboats are, the more dangerous the children were. Now, sometimes I was the support person. I was the cook. I loved this role. I just got to feed people and hang out with cool people all day. I didn't have to teach anything. I cooked for hundreds of people out there around rattlesnakes and scorpions and flash floods, right? I mean, when it rains out there, it is dangerous, and nothing ever freaked me out more than men in the wilderness, but especially drunk men, and especially drunk men with, pew-pews, but more importantly, boats. Don't get in a boat with a man. Do not get in a boat with a man unless you know this man and trust this man. Because I cannot tell you how many women have told me about these horrifying stories of being in speedboats or, rafts, any kind of boat with a man in charge. Because his ego, his hubris, his need to perform masculinity for all the other dudes especially will get all of y'all killed. And it was especially terrifying when we were at the Hoover Dam area, the northern Colorado River part of the section that we did. Northern for us, but the Colorado River is a long river. Up there, it was, there wasn't much current. So even we had to use boats to get our thousands of pounds of food down the river. And you know what? I love this trip. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but I was a cook on this. I love cooking for them, hanging out with them, and feeding the whole staff. And we even slept on the boats, with I loved it. Beautiful area, right? And imagine, we have exposure to, the elements, flash floods, hypothermia, because it gets cold in the desert. You could have food poisoning issues if you don't properly refrigerate things and keep them cool. There's a whole science behind keeping food cool on these rivers in nature. And food allergies. We were hours away from definitive care. So we had to have woofers, wilderness first responders. We had to know how to deal with peanut allergies, shellfish allergies, all kinds of allergies, EpiPen. And yet none of that stuff ever worried me as much as men in boats. So the hardest part of this job, of any of my jobs, was never nature. It was not the elements. It wasn't the people in general. It was men. And it wasn't even men who were out there purposely trying to be malicious and dangerous. It was just men being reckless and not respecting life, not respecting other people. Because anything that stands in the way of a man having a good time, especially in the outdoors, I cannot tell. I think this is where I developed my hatred of men in the outdoors who have not been deconstructing their patriarchal conditioning, because they are the most toxic people on earth, because they just see nature as just another thing to conquer, another thing to exploit, another, and they literally talk about nature in a very colonizer mindset, right? Because white supremacy, capitalism, all this stuff is tied together. And part of the colonizer mindset is to conquer nature. to, be dominant over nature. It is so tied to like grape culture and the way men talk about nature. And it's like man versus nature. I gotta tame this thing. Fresh tracks or virgin tracks, like literally the language they use. And this is even like lefty men will talk this way because in their mind it's all about class and whatever, but they don't care about patriarchy and how that ties in and white supremacy culture and how those two tie in to how they see nature, how they even see themselves, how they treat human life, animal life, just like the planet. And working in the industry around, a lot of my coworkers were men and they were awesome. But some of them were the most toxic people I've ever met. Over all the years I worked in multiple different jobs, different states, being a climber for so long, part of that conditioning is just about just selfishness. I want what I want, what I want, what I want. And that's tied to whiteness and patriarchy. So even the most, and I'm about to go into this man and his whole story, but I just wanted to say all this right out of the gate because there's so many men who just love nature, who are climbers, skiers, and all this stuff, and you hate women. You hate nature, you hate women, but you don't think you hate either because you haven't dealt with your mindset around. And so even though they may be soft-spoken and wear Patagonia and have a ponytail, they'll still talk down to you and think they know more than you and will be led by their ego and hubris and need to conquer stuff over a more community-based mindset of care and actually protecting people, nature, rather than dominating, using, exploiting, and basically graping, stealing. But this particular guy, I don't really know his politics, don't really care, but he definitely, just having checked his social media and the stuff I'm going to show you, seems to really be all about toxic masculinity. And I got my big boat. Look at my big boat. Look at my boat. And he's a father. So this is a photo on his page. There's 3 girls. There's a woman here that seems like his wife, and maybe there's like a mother-in-law or something. So this wasn't just some, reckless man. This was a dad. And usually these are dads. They're almost always dads doing this stuff. And, he seems obsessed with pew-pews. He's got his kids, pretending to shoot him. He's teaching one of he is kissing her in a little too weird way. But whatever, he's teaching his daughters to be boaters too. I wouldn't be surprised if his daughters were on that boat when he unalived a 10-year-old girl and chopped the leg off of a 40-year-old woman. He has so many posts on social media of kids on the water with him, his girl, or, literally holding. And this post right here says some of y'all's parents never did this to you, and it shows. Anyway, he is a girl dad. He is a girl dad who just loves his boats. He's a 40-year-old man. And like so many men, acts out in nature and at home and in life in general, unless he's around other men that he's, has to put on his professional thing, acts like a child. He was operating a boat in a reckless manner while intoxicated. His boat struck 3 people who were swimming in a North Carolina lake, killing a 10-year-old girl and critically injuring a woman. More to that in a second. Prosecutors said they found 39 empty beer cans in the boat. Now, he wasn't the only one in the boat, but, there's a lot of evidence. 7 of the empty beer cans had been shotgunned. Now, this man has been in trouble multiple times. In 2010, he pleaded guilty in New Mexico to having operated a motor vehicle under the influence 1 year earlier. In December of 2023, in another county in North Carolina, he was arrested with felony charges for a hit and run that resulted in an injury. Those charges are pending. Again, this is a father. This is a father who's out there just on his boat all the time, doing whatever he wants, being a head of household, a leader. Now, this person, I'm not going to show who it was. They posted this and they said, hopefully you get what you deserve this time, Quinten. Less than 2 years ago, he hit Alex, whoever that is, on his motorcycle, nearly unaliving him while drinking and driving, and he fled. The case is still pending 2 years later with dash camera video of the accident. Now he's unalived a little girl running over her with his boat while drinking, and the second victim has lost her. So yeah, this dude seems like a menace to society. However, if he had unalived his own children in an accident, it would have been a tragedy. Oh, it would have been such a tragedy. Well, at least they were with their daddy when they died. I bet he saved the... No, they endangered their kid. Like they said here, this man's not safe to be out in the community right now. He wasn't safe a long time ago, but because he's a white dude, He can do all this stuff and never face accountability. Now, this is the part that really gets me. So he's broke, yet he is out on boats, partying it up. Usually when men are having a good time and they're indigent, I mean, he's a homosexual, but he's a father of 3, I think. There's a woman who's bankrolling him. That's what we do. So retired from the U.S. Army. What does that mean? Well, as somebody who has a Vietnam vet dad who is dead now, who had a drinking problem, and this is not to be heartless towards alcoholics, addicts, and stuff like that. I actually have a whole lot of empathy for addiction, and still it causes so much harm in the world. And because the U.S. military cares about soldiers about as much as men under patriarchy tend to care about women, it's just about labor, using them. A knitting cult lady breaks this down so well. Have all these things usually come down to just exploitation of labor, free labor. So, probably came out of the army, possibly traumatized, but still, I don't care. Like, I care about vets. My dad was a vet, and it doesn't excuse this behavior because they always end up hurting their children and women the most. Men who are traumatized in the military, or even their military wives or their comrades and stuff, that like other women in the military, even if they're not married to them, a lot of times they'll be raping them, harming them. But whoever these vets who have addiction problems, whoever they have power over, usually get screwed the most, especially in their personal life. But now it's impacting the public at large. And now it's a problem. Yeah, again, he could have been in that boat and run over his own children. And they probably would have framed it somehow as he was a good dad and he just made an oopsie. God. He's unable to pay a $500,000 bond and he's being held at a detention center. But, okay, I mean, that's a lot of money. Okay, I couldn't come up with that. But the indigent part, but partying on a boat, those seem a little weird unless he's just a homosexual living off of some woman. And I would not be surprised if his children watched him do this, because at the time, several other people were in a boat with him. And he was towing 2 people in a tube. I wonder who those people were. Possibly his children, which still goes to show you he's drunk driving a boat of other people. He's not only a menace to strangers who are out on the river, on the lake, swimming. He's a menace to everybody in that boat. I'm just telling you, please, y'all know I make this content a lot. Do not trust men in cars, boats, in the wilderness, like in natural disaster. Do not trust their judgment over your own. If you do not feel safe or you don't trust that man in general, do not get in his boat. Please don't get in his boat, even if it's free and is a promise. So look at the gruesome details of this. He'd been making a turn when his boat's propeller hit 2 of the swimmers about 500 yards away from the boat launch area. I'm guessing that they may have been in a no-wake zone. I wouldn't be surprised because I can't tell you how many times men would take their damn speedboats through no-wake zones with our canoers, our children in canoes, and be heading right for them and not realize until the last minute. And then, so this child, this 10-year-old, Brooklyn May Carroll, died at the scene, probably by a propeller, because Jennifer Steele, a woman in her early 40s, was critically injured by the propeller and was airlifted to a trauma center. She lost her leg. According to this source, the NC Beat, I don't really know how credible this is. So according to them, this says her right leg above the knee was amputated and are still trying to save her left leg. This woman could lose both her legs because of this man. According to this source, also, he was circling near a designated swim area. So I don't know if he was in the swim area or near the swim area, but either way, you should not be going fast near swim area, even if it's not officially a no-wake zone. According to People magazine, he drove his girlfriend's boat. How convenient. He found a girlfriend with a boat. Who knows? This could be the mother of his children. I don't know. I don't care at this point. Oh, and by the way, I skipped over this part. He had tried to get rid of the empty beer can. Oh, you mean like hit and run style? Because that he's already done? Oh, and by the way, he hurt a mother of now these children have a permanently disabled mother. And she's a social worker. A school, so of course. So like I said, one of my favorite trips were on the river, overnight trips. This one was like a 5-day trip, I think. And the last day we would make our pods, a pod of canoes, and we would float. We would get up super early in the morning, and we have our sleeping bags, and we would just float as a pod, because there's like we know the river well, and we know there's like nothing. And I would stay awake and with a rudder and move the pod, if we went too far left or right. And the only thing I ever worried about, ever, other than like weather, but even then we knew how to handle weather, was men. Never again. And it's not like the bear in this situation is not a man even trying to hurt you. He's not malicious. He is not like, yeah, he's just having a good time. Just gonna drink my beer and do my boat, and nothing stands in the way of me having a good time, even if it means unaliving people. God, this makes me very mad, because this happens all the time. And every time I make a video about this, there are either stitches or comments or reaction videos of people telling their own stories of being terrorized in boats by men. Now, everyone's wants your women to do this too, but I'm telling you, and they're almost always dads in those kind of scenarios. If the younger men, if they're in charge of you on the whitewater, whatever, I've already talked about them a lot and their recklessness. But these are the men who own boats. Just as scary. Anyway, let me know what y'all think. Like, comment, share. Follow my Patreon if you really like my stuff. I did watch parties, lives. I do travel content. I talk about more personal stuff there. We have a really fun, great community over there. And there's even a free tier if you just kind of want to keep up with my work and stuff like that. Anyway, let's hope that this woman keeps her leg somehow. And please, 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 never trust a man's intuition or his hubris or his ego over yours, unless you know this man very well and he has a consistent record of really good judgment, very thoughtful, and emotionally intelligent. If he's not have all those things, do not trust him. Please, 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 please. And let me know if you heard the comment song. Medieval fairy comment song, a palate cleanser for another depressing story. I went to this weekend. I'm gonna do a video for Patreon. Medieval comment song. All the dudes are really good at riding the horses, and some of them were pretty hot. Yeah, look at this. Look at these guys riding 2 horses at once. Oh boy, I've got some stuff to show you. They were doing tricks and riding upside down, but that'll be on my Patreon if you're into that. Castle behind him, yep. That's a castle like a castle comment song. Palate cleanser.